This is Jeffrey Towson at Peking University in Beijing. I am here with Professor Paul Gillis, who is the co-director of the International MBA program here. And he is also a professor of accounting, and he's agreed to sit and talk with us today about what's going on with accounting in China. And for those who aren't following this, the answer is an enormous amount is going on with accounting in China right now. I mean, talking about that, the situation of international, the big four, versus sort of the rising domestic accounting firms, how has that been changing recently?
Well, the big four came back to China right as China opened up. They really started to expand and become significant in the mid-1990s. And they grew to become the largest accounting firms in China, the big four were. Since the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, there's been a big shift in the accounting profession in China. And what we've seen is that the local accounting firms have been growing much faster than the big four firms. And we're at the point now where if you look at the top firms in China, the largest firm in China is PwC, but number two is Ruihua, which is a local accounting firm, and number three is the local affiliate of BDO. Then we get to number four is Deloitte, and so the big four in China includes two local firms instead of being the big four, which tends to be present in almost every other country in the world, the same big four.
How big are these companies? If we were to look at the number of professionals or number of audits done in the top four.
You know, I came to China 20 years ago. And when I came to China, I was with Price Waterhouse, and we had about 500 people in the country. Today, Price Waterhouse has over 10,000, about 13,000 people in the country. So that's how much it's grown. So these are huge firms.
How would that compare to Price Waterhouse, say, in the U.S.?
It's probably it's smaller still than the U.S., but it's rapidly becoming the second largest firm. As they're passing the UK here, if they haven't already passed them, they will soon pass the UK in size. And I think they will catch and pass the United States sometime in the next 20 years.
Okay. We can see the same pattern. I mean, my research is all competition. We see the same pattern in lots of industries. Investment banking, private equity, real estate investment, smartphones, even beer. Like, you see this initial phase where foreign companies come in and they do quite well.
Yes.
And then the local companies sort of rise up and the market share shifts. Like, you go back to 2010, 80% of the smartphones are international companies. Today, there's Apple and Samsung, and everyone else is pretty much gone. Like, it's 80% locals.
Right.
Happened particularly quickly in private equity, happened really fast in real estate. I mean, there was a lot of growth in 2005, 2006, and then the local companies just roared up and took most of the market. I mean, but it happens for different reasons. Like, why do you think this shift is happening in accounting?
Well, when the big four first came to China, their primary focus was on following their clients from international clients into China. When the multinationals started to make China the #1 destination for foreign direct investment, the big four followed that investment in and basically secured all of that. And that wasn't really something local firms could do. What has happened in recent years, then that business shifted, and the big four focused more on helping Chinese companies raise capital internationally. And so we saw some of the really big Chinese companies like Sinopec and PetroChina list on the New York Stock Exchange. We saw many more list as H shares in Hong Kong, and that work was all done by the big four. What has happened, though, in the last decade is a shift away from using overseas capital markets and more to using domestic capital markets. And so we saw the rise of the SME board in Shenzhen and Chinext, China's version of NASDAQ in Shenzhen. And now private companies, they're finding that the valuations they can get on the Chinese markets are much higher than what they could get in the international markets. So we've seen a shift, and the companies are listing now more often on Chinese exchanges than on international exchanges. That has benefited the local accounting firms because the local accounting firms basically own the domestic stock exchanges. The Big Four have a very insignificant market presence on the local stock exchanges. And if they don't change that, the future is not very bright for the Big Four.